My name is Eric. I own Traditional Marine Services. I'm a master mechanic, master shipwright, naval architect, marine engineer. Been in the business since 1991. In this video, I am going to discuss the different types of paddles I make, why to use them, and the most common questions I get regarding these paddles. So here we have three of the different paddles that I make. A couple different lengths. This first one is a Greenland paddle. It's what we call a semi-shouldered paddle. It has a slight taper down through here. It's a smooth transition between the shaft and the blade. This paddle is used for extended paddle strokes because your hand can slide smoothly to the end. Now every single one of these paddles will do the same thing as the other. It is just a matter of personal preference and comfort. Okay? This paddle is a shouldered version of the Greenland paddle, same as the first one. It has these particular lumps at the end of the loom where your hand would rest. If you see that, when you're paddling. That is for blade indexing when you're doing rolls. This is the preferred paddle for people who do a lot of rolling. You always know where your paddle is at because you can feel this lump against your hand in different positions. You can still do extended paddle strokes. It's just a little awkward coming over the edge, but you get used to it. I use all these paddles. This paddle is a little more unusual. It is an Aleutian Indian style, and it really gets the short end of the stick, literally, because the Greenland popularity, this paddle isn't as recognized. It has a little more power than a Greenland paddle, and with the narrow tip, it slices into the water easily with less disturbance and is even more efficient than the Greenland paddle. Now we're going to discuss why to use these paddles. The first part of it will be efficiency. The shape of this paddle, this is kind of a dihedral type shape. It's almost an airfoil. When it goes through the water, it's designed to slip a little bit, and when it slips, it creates a vacuum in the water, similar to the way an airplane wing creates lift. Excuse me. These paddles have a long, thin blade versus a short, fat blade like the Euro paddles. They're almost exactly the same in surface area. Minor variations in construction, etc. But the surface area is very similar, so you get the same amount of thrust. A lot of people think that, you know, the short, fat blades are more powerful. They're really not. Okay, with this paddle shape, it enters the water easily and cleanly with less disturbance. Less water disturbance means more efficiency. I can't really discuss efficiency of the paddle without touching a little bit on technique. This video is not about technique. There is a lot of videos out there on technique. But one of the number one thing that I see is people like using low angle strokes. And this is going to lead into another reason why to use a Greenland paddle. Not now though. Basically, when you're using any of the traditional paddles, your arms, your elbows are almost locked. Okay? So when you go to dip the paddle, you're going to use an almost vertical stroke. The power does not come from your arms. You drop your arms, the weight of your arms and the weight of the paddle will propel the boat forward. But the biggest thing is core. You twist. You use your arms, shoulders, back, stomach muscles, everything. It's a lot easier on the body than just paddling with your arms. Another point to consider is environmental impact. These paddles are wood. They're beautiful, they're warm, comfortable, and it's a renewable resource. We use aspen for the shafts, cedar for the blades. Our paddles consume an average of 2 board feet each, so we have a very efficient production process. They make a lot of other types of paddles and a lot of other types of materials. You have Kevlar, carbon fiber, aluminum, plastic, all of which leave a very large carbon footprint in the processing of either the materials or the actual product. So the final reason to use a traditional paddle is pain. We all love our sport. We would like to do it for as long as possible, and we never get any younger. One of the biggest issues with paddling is joint injury, shoulder injury, carpal tunnel, that kind of thing. Medical doctors have researched it. There's a lot of information out there about it. One of the biggest things you can do to prevent that is warm-ups. You need to do stretches, anything. You would not do any kind of exercise without a proper warm-up and not expect to have injuries. Same thing with kayaking. It's a physical activity. The advantage to a traditional paddle over the fat-bladed Euro paddles is the narrow blades. Yes, you have the same surface area, but they're designed to slip a little bit through the water. They don't shock load your joints. And when you use the proper technique, remember we discussed a little bit about technique, just barely touched on it. When you use the proper technique, you're not using your arms. You're not flexing your elbows, putting your elbows under load, your wrists, etc. That's another reason to stay away from low angle strokes. They're hard on your joints. These paddles with the narrow blades and the same equivalent surface area are a lot easier on your joints. So I'm going to wrap this video up answering a few of the most common questions I get asked. First thing is size. Everybody wants to know, there's a lot of first timers out there buying these and they want to know how to choose a size. We make a couple standard sizes, 84s, 86-inch paddles. Pretty much covers the widest range of people that are paddling, but sometimes we do a little bit of custom, different sizes. If you are 5'9", pretty much, and under, you can use an 84-inch paddle. That's kind of marginal, 5'9", you could bounce in between. I'm 5'9". The biggest thing is the fit of the boat. When you are using a traditional technique, and we touched a little bit on that technique, you want a fist width between your hip and the outside edge of the boat, and that's if the boat fits you properly. That's how most people size them. So with that width of a boat in this size range, an 84-inch is fine. Now if you're paddling a wide fat, say like a fishing kayak, you might want something a little bit longer because you're going to actually open your reach up. On that wide boat, you might want an 86. That's why I bounce between, because I use a fishing kayak and I have touring boat. So generally speaking, you reach up, you cup the end of the paddle. That's the length that you want. Okay, this is an 84, fits me really nice. An 86 is a little bit longer and I can still reach it. It's a little bit of a stretch. So 84 is actually a better fit for me. The other thing in size is you hold the paddles, you want your hands to be approximately shoulder width apart. So the loom on our paddles are standard 20 inches. This is actually maybe a shade bit narrow for me, but the 84s come standard with a 20-inch loom, and again, that fits the majority of people. An 86 has a 22-inch loom. That's a more comfortable fit for me, but it's just a shade long. This is why I bounce between the two. Most people can get by with a generic paddle, such as this. Custom paddles cost a lot more money. Another good reason to use a traditional paddle is wind resistance. These blades, being narrower, have a lot less wind resistance out at the end. With the Euro paddles, they're a fat out here on this end. They're further away from your body. They have more surface area exposed further out on the paddle, which puts more leverage on you and increases the amount of work you have to do. These paddles aren't as affected by the wind. They are affected by the wind, but not as much as the Euro blades. The Aleutian style paddle is actually the best paddle for wind, the least amount of wind resistance, because of the narrow ends, the tips. This distance further away from your body, away from your body's air pocket, catches less wind. Thanks for watching my video on why to use a traditional paddle. I hope it was informative. I hope that answered a lot of the questions that people tend to have, and I hope to see you out on the water.